Hey, what's up guys? John here. America's had it so good for so long, and to think about food shortages, it's very challenging for most Americans to wrap their head around the idea of going to a store and not having food or having water or having items because everything's just been so easy. I mean, we would never really see any true poverty in America. Sure, we'd see people living, below a certain level, but when I think of poverty, I think of, third world countries where people are actually starving or people they don't have running water. That's what I think of real poverty. America is sure they've had living standards that have been diminished below, the majority, right? But we haven't seen true poverty, true need. We haven't seen yet. But that looks like we're stepping into this era right now. Because what I think happens generally, we've seen this happen, is a slow drip of information to normalize problems. So they'll start very small and they'll say, okay, it's just going to be 7 days or, a small amount, and then it's going to gradually, right? We've seen the same thing happen right now with food. We've heard a lot about food shortages. It's going to be, a couple items you're not going to be able to get. Maybe you're going to go here, you're not going to be able to get water. You're only be able to get limited amounts of water or limited baby formula or small amounts, right? Because there's shortages. But over time, it's just getting progressively worse. And now I'm looking at these headlines from people that are, I think, some of the most influential people on the planet that are telling us what's coming. I'm not talking about Biden. I'm talking about the most influential, like the Rothschilds. People like that are putting out messages to let people know that, we could be stepping into true famine. And I'm not saying this to scare anyone. Let me just give you the information. I'll show you the facts. The coming food catastrophe, and this is the Economist, right? The coming food catastrophe, war is tipping a fragile world towards mass hunger. Fixing that is everyone's business. By invading Ukraine, Vladimir Putin will destroy the lives of people far from the battlefield and on a scale he may regret. The war is battering a global food system, right? So one, and this pandemic, right? Two, the change, three, and the energy shock. So all four of these items are coming to a head at one time, right? So that way, there's not one potential problem that's to blame. It's all these things coming together. And because of all these things, we need to make a big change, right? And for a big change to happen, it can't happen gradually. There has to be a big problem, and then a change is going to be required, right? And so Ukraine's export of grain and oilseeds have mostly stopped, and Russia's are threatened. Together, the two countries supply 12% of traded calories. Wheat prices are up 53% since the start of the year, jumped a further 6% on May 16th after India said it would suspend exports because of an alarming heat wave. The widely accepted idea of a cost of living crisis does not begin to capture the gravity of what may lie ahead. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, warned on May 18th that the coming months threatened the spectra of a global food shortage that could last for years. The high cost of staple foods has already historically raised the number of people who cannot be sure of getting enough to eat by 440 million to 1.6 billion. You think, well, we have about 8 billion people in the world. That's, roughly a quarter of the world's population. Nearly 250 million are on the brink of famine. If, as is likely, the war drags on and supplies from Russia and Ukraine are limited, hundreds of millions more people could fall into poverty. Political unrest will spread, children will be stunted, and people will starve. This is The Economist, right? That's pretty ridiculous. Like that says a lot. May 19th, right? So that just came out. You're like, okay, well, The Economist, who is this? What does this look like? And so I was just looking into one of their editors. But you look into the shareholders for The Economist. Shareholders, you have this, aside from Agnelli family, smaller shareholders in the company include Cadbury, Rothschild, right, 21%. So the Rothschild owns 21%. But then you have down here, The Economist newspaper's limited wholly owned subsidy of The Economist Group. Sir Evelyn Rothschild, so a different Rothschild, was chairman of the company from 1972 to 1989. So about 17 years. So the Rothschilds obviously have a large play in The Economist, right? Obviously, everyone knows that they're extremely wealthy, right? And they have a lot of power. But we look at what Biden is saying because all this comes together. All this comes together. So watch. Biden sees bigger role for U.S. farms to ease food prices amid the Ukraine war, right? And so remember when Elizabeth Warren said that corporate greed sees corporations taking advantage of, everyday Americans, they're the problem. It's the corporations. It's not the fact that, the world's in disarray. It's the corporations that are taking advantage, right? And so they do that because they essentially can position themselves as a solution to get in the way of the corporations and the people, giving them further power. But when we have Biden here saying that the food prices are, the high food prices are an indirect response with the farmers basically taking advantage of everyday Americans because they say, hey, we can do this right now. We can jack up prices, nothing you can do about it, right? And so Biden is doing the same thing by basically pointing his finger, and it looks like positioning himself to tell them they need to reduce prices, but they have increased cost. Fertilizer shortages, remember? Increased oil prices, remember? All of these additional costs, labor shortages. And they're even paying them to get rid of some items, right, on growing. So you have all these different issues that are happening with farmers. So there's going to be shortages. And a lot of farmers right now, they're real Americans. Like there's so much so that some farmers are working for free or even at a loss just to get the food out, right? And so they're really doing their best. And so you have this issue here with the farmers, which could potentially lead to, I'm not saying it will or will not, but if they're saying that farmers need to do something, are they going to enact some type of price control? Are they going to try to do something to that level that would price farmers out? I don't know, but the idea of increased oil prices, they're saying between $200 and $300 a barrel, they're saying is where oil prices could go. If that happened, then food prices would have to skyrocket because the cost to actually even just deliver those food, the cost to grow, everything would just skyrocket. So there's a big question is like, okay, well, if the Economist is coming out saying that there's going to be a food catastrophe, right, and oil prices are going to continue rising, and there's going to be less available food for purchase, and America as a whole went from a country of being a place where, you could get everything that you need in America, everything. You could build your house from foundation to roof, everything in between you can get in America. All the food on the plate inside that house, everything. Even the bed that you slept on was made in America, as well as the bed frame, everything. Now America makes very little, right? And so when we're getting everything sent in and we are not producing half as much food as we once were, and we have all these big problems coming, that I ask myself, it's like, okay, well, where is this headed? Where are we going as a society? I believe we are going into a darker place in the world, and I believe people are going to change the way that they look at investing. They're going to change the way they look at money. They're going to change the way that they look at life. You're going to see people leaving cities, going into places that are a little bit more, out in the middle of nowhere, right? People are going to be more defensive. That's I think, where we're headed as a society, especially once we start to go into grocery stores and we start to see more vacant shelves, right? If we start to hear more problems, more vacant shelves, you're going to see people really do things that they would have never thought that they would have done, right? And so I asked myself, and I had this question with a couple of friends of mine, if things really were to get crazy, would you stay in America, or would you go to South America? Would you go to, where would you go, right? And so a lot of people have different opinions, and I'm kind of just curious as a whole, where would you go? Where do you think the best place to be would be? Do you think it would be America, where you have 330 million Americans, and we don't really produce that much food in relation to what we did 20 or 30 years ago? You have other countries that are slowing down their shipments to America, and we're stepping into this potentially big problem. Is this the spot to be if things were to get crazy? And I'm not saying that they are. And I want to, full disclosure, I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying that they are saying that they are, right? This is what they are saying. I'm just connecting the dots for you. I'm looking at the oil prices. I'm looking at what Biden's saying about the farmers. I'm looking at, what some of the most powerful people are putting out there, what they're warning of, and looking at how this is going to impact the fake economy that we're in right now, which is based around heavy stimulus, where bills were optional, like eviction moratoriums were a real thing. Student loans were pushed out. Car payments, they were just giving anyone any car, right? People didn't really have to qualify. They were giving them barely qualify. All these things were happening. Utility bills were optional. Yeah, here's stimulus. Here's PPP loans. Sure, here's unemployment benefits. Let me just give you everything. I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about it. Stay home, right? All these things are happening. People are getting rich in the stock market because all the money was just flowing to the markets. And they're like, okay, this is the new normal, where I make 200% on an investment. I can't even pronounce the name of the stock. Like that's how the economy that we were in, right? Well, we were in. Now it's slowly getting ripped out. But we're stepping into this new problem that I think is going to be a huge, huge wake-up call for 90% of Americans. What do you think about this? Do you think we're going to step into this problem? Do you think this is going to be a real issue? Or do you think that this is just going to go away over the next month or 2 months, and then the stock market will level out to a place of normalcy, and then everything's just going to continue growing over time, and the economy is going to be fine? Drop your comments below. Hit the like button. Subscribe here. Also subscribe to my second channel. It's going to be an interactive podcast and show starting this week, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Look forward to connecting with you on a personal level. You'll be able to call in, which will be really, really cool. And also subscribe on LinkedIn and Instagram, TikTok. Everything's in the banner. I'm really curious, though. Really curious as to what you guys think about this entire situation. Drop it in the comments, because let's get a conversation down below about this, because I think a lot of people have different opinions and perspectives on just how bad things are going to get, or if it's going to get bad at all, or if this is all just, fear that they put out there just to kind of get people stirred up emotionally. Drop your comments below, and we'll talk later.